What happens when the people you trust the most turn against you? It's a question I never thought I'd have to ask. But that night, it all changed. It started like any other family dinner. The usual hum of chatter filled the air, the clink of silverware against plates, the comforting smell of lasagna baking in the oven. My parents, my siblings, and I gathered around the dining table, talking about the usual things: work, the kids, weekend plans. The room felt warm, familiar. But I should have known something was off. Rachel was unusually quiet at first. I noticed she was staring at her phone more than usual, scrolling through something with a frown on her face. My younger brother, Sam, was already deep into one of his off-color jokes, and my mom was nervously trying to keep the conversation light. But then Rachel's eyes locked onto mine, and for a split second, I felt the air shift. "Emily," Rachel said, her voice sharp, slicing through the chatter. "Can we talk about something serious?" I hesitated, glancing over at my mom, who had a subtle frown on her face. My parents had always made it a point to keep the family gatherings pleasant, so when Rachel said something serious, you knew it wasn't going to be good. "What's up?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Rachel put her phone down and leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Well, I've been thinking a lot lately," she started, her voice dripping with an edge I hadn't heard in years. "About how things have been going in the family. And I just have to say, Emily, you're always the one who just checks out, you know." I blinked, caught off guard by her sudden outburst. The room went quiet. My stomach dropped, the familiar tension creeping back. Rachel had always been the more outspoken one, but this was different. She was angry, and I didn't even know why. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm just living my life, Rachel." No, she said, shaking her head like she was disappointed in me. "You're always the one who hides behind your work. You never take time to just be here with the family. It's like you don't even care." I could feel my pulse quicken, the pressure building in my chest. "What are you talking about? I've always been here when it counts." She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, sure. But only when it's convenient for you. You don't even make an effort to really connect with any of us anymore. It's all about your job and your little peaceful life. You're so busy with your perfect little bubble that you don't even see how we're falling apart." My heart raced, my mind spinning. Rachel had always been blunt, but this was more than that. This wasn't just criticism. This was an accusation. And it wasn't just about me. It was about our whole family. Everything I had worked so hard to hold together. I don't get it," I said quietly, trying to hold back the tears threatening to spill. "I'm doing my best." "Your best?" Rachel scoffed again, her voice rising. "You think your best is enough? You're so wrapped up in your own world, you don't see how everyone else is struggling." "How I am struggling?" "Rachel, calm down," I started, but she cut me off. "No, Emily. I'm done being calm about this. You think you can just waltz in and out of our lives, offering little more than a smile and "I'm sorry, I'm busy," but it's not enough anymore. You can't keep pretending everything's fine when you're the one making it worse." I opened my mouth to respond, but my mom's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Rachel, that's enough," Mom said, her tone sharp but weary. "We're all just trying to get along here. Emily is doing the best she can." But Rachel wasn't having it. "No, Mom. Stop enabling her. We've been tiptoeing around Emily's feelings for years, but it's clear she's always been the favorite, the one who gets the pass. You never hold her accountable." It felt like the room was spinning. My brother, Sam, who had been mostly quiet, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mom looked stunned, and Dad was still sitting at the head of the table, his eyes cast downward as if he didn't want to get involved. Rachel's words hung in the air, sharp and accusing. "You don't get it," I finally managed to say, my voice tight. "I've been here, Rachel. I've been doing everything I can, but maybe I can't do it all." That's when the room erupted. "You always have an excuse," Rachel yelled. "Always." Everyone else in this family is here for each other, but you're always too busy or too perfect to be involved. And I'm done pretending it's okay." The table was silent for a moment, the weight of her words pressing down on me. I could feel the hot sting of tears behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of everyone. Without thinking, I stood up, my chair scraping harshly against the floor. I was shaking, my breath coming in shallow gasps. "I can't do this," I whispered. "What?" Rachel demanded, her voice thick with anger. "Where are you going?" "I can't sit here and listen to this anymore," I said, my voice barely audible. "You don't get it, Rachel. You've never gotten it." With that, I turned and walked out of the house, not bothering to grab my coat or say goodbye. The sound of 23 missed calls and a barrage of text messages from my family buzzed in my pocket, but I couldn't bring myself to look at them. I kept walking. The cold night air hit me like a slap in the face as I stepped onto the street, the lights of the house dimming behind me. I felt the weight of the argument still clinging to me, the sting of betrayal sharp in my chest. What had just happened? I was used to being the peacemaker, the one who kept everyone happy. But tonight? It felt like everything had shattered. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know if I could fix it. What happens when the people you trust the most turn against you? I still didn't know the answer. But I was about to find out. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emily had always been the steady one, the one who kept everything from falling apart. Growing up in a family torn apart by divorce, she learned early on how to navigate tension and conflict. With her parents splitting when she was just 10, she'd quickly realized that her role in the family wasn't to ask questions, but to make sure everything functioned. She had to be the glue that held it all together, even when she felt like falling apart herself. Her mother, Lisa, and father, David, had tried their best to maintain an amicable relationship after their split. There were moments when it seemed like things could go back to normal, but the cracks were always there, lurking under the surface. Emily had always been the one to smooth things over, making sure no one's feelings were hurt, that no one felt left out. Even though her brother Sam was younger and Rachel had a stronger personality, Emily's natural tendency was to try and make everything right. Rachel, on the other hand, had always been more expressive. She didn't shy away from confrontation, and at times, it felt like she enjoyed stirring the pot. Emily never understood why Rachel had to challenge everything, whether it was their parents' new relationships or the way their family tried to make things work despite the mess. Rachel's anger seemed constant, while Emily's patience was endless. But the two of them had always been a complicated pair, two sides of the same coin. Growing up, Emily had been the quiet one, the one who worked hard in school, did her chores without complaint, and always kept the peace. Rachel, on the other hand, was the rebellious one. She'd get into trouble at school, speak her mind in ways that made their parents uncomfortable, and demand attention when she didn't feel like she was being heard. While Emily was trying to navigate the delicate balance between keeping the peace and following the rules, Rachel was stirring the pot, disrupting everything she could. It wasn't just their parents who noticed the differences between them, everyone did. Emily and Rachel were often compared, and not always favorably. Rachel was the wild one, the one who made people laugh and caused drama at family gatherings. Emily, though, was the quiet achiever, praised for her maturity and ability to always hold things together. But inside, Emily often felt invisible, like she was a background character in her own life. But no one seemed to notice the toll it took on her. The burden of being the one to hold things together was heavy. She didn't have the freedom to just express herself or even fall apart. Whenever things got too tough, whenever she felt the weight of it all, she pushed through. She didn't have the luxury of showing weakness. There was always someone who needed her. Whether it was Sam needing help with his homework or Rachel needing someone to listen to her rants. And so, Emily buried her own emotions deep inside. She kept everything in line, making sure no one else was burdened. It wasn't until later, as an adult, that Emily realized just how much she had suppressed for the sake of her family. It became her role, the dependable one, the responsible one, the one who would always make things work. Her career as a graphic designer had been a way to escape the chaos at home. It was something she could control, something that was all hers. She worked hard to build her career, and over time, it became the one constant in her life. At work, Emily was seen as reliable and competent, but there, she could be herself. No one expected her to be the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who always held it together. For once, she was able to let her creativity flow, express herself, and take ownership of something that was truly hers. But even her success in the professional world didn't fill the hole that existed in her heart. She was still living in a family dynamic that relied on her to make everything okay, even when everything inside her was screaming for relief. Emily had tried to voice this frustration to her parents, but it always fell on deaf ears. They didn't understand why she felt so burdened. After all, they were doing the best they could, and they'd never asked her to be the glue. Rachel, of course, had never understood. She saw Emily as the perfect, dependable one who didn't need help, the one who had it all together. Rachel, with her loud personality and sharp words, often said Emily was perfect, but it wasn't a compliment. It was more like an accusation. Rachel could never see the exhaustion that Emily carried with her, the pressure of always being the one to keep everything from falling apart. Over the years, Emily's attempts at maintaining peace had turned into a quiet frustration. The more she gave, the more it felt like the family took. She would work extra hours at her job, all while trying to maintain the fragile threads that held the family together. And yet, it was never enough. And now, Rachel's words stung in a way Emily hadn't expected. The truth in them hit harder than any confrontation they'd ever had before. Rachel was right about one thing. Emily had been checked out, not because she didn't care, but because she was so overwhelmed by the expectations placed on her that she had to pull away. Her life was too full of other people's needs and demands. And now, all of a sudden, it felt like the family was turning against her for it. As Emily walked out of that dinner, she had no idea what her next move would be. She had always thought that, at some point, everything would click into place. But tonight had shattered that illusion. The family she had worked so hard to keep together had just splintered into a mess of anger and hurt. And now, she was standing on the outside, questioning everything she thought she knew about herself and her place in the family. Her phone buzzed again, another call from her mom. Another text from Rachel. 23 missed calls. But Emily didn't know if she could go back to what she had just left. Not without facing what had truly been broken all along. The next morning, Emily woke up with a heavy heart. The familiar scent of coffee wafted through the air as she sat up in bed, her phone still buzzing with notifications. Rachel had texted at least 5 times, all in caps, demanding answers. Mom and Dad had left several messages too, but Emily couldn't bring herself to respond. The night before, her mind had been in a fog. The argument at dinner had left her shaken, and now, in the cold light of day, she couldn't stop replaying every word Rachel had said. You're always the one who just checks out. You don't care about the family. You think your perfect little life is more important than all of us. Rachel's accusations stung more than anything Emily had experienced before. They weren't just random insults, they were truths she had been avoiding for years. In some ways, Rachel had hit the nail on the head. Emily had been checked out. She had distanced herself, built a wall around her life, trying to avoid the chaos that came with being the fixer in the family. But now, with everything hanging by a thread, Emily felt like she was losing control of it all. She stood up and walked over to the window, gazing out at the city's skyline. The sun was barely rising, and the world was still quiet, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her. She needed to think, to make sense of everything. Suddenly, her phone vibrated on the nightstand, interrupting her thoughts. She hesitated for a moment before picking it up. It was a text from Rachel. "Rachel, I need to talk to you. Stop avoiding me." Emily's stomach tightened. The text was followed by another and another, each one more demanding than the last. She sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen, unsure of how to respond. The family dynamic had always been delicate, like walking a tightrope. She tried so hard to keep everyone happy, to maintain peace, and to be the person they all relied on. But that night, everything had changed. Her relationship with Rachel, which had always been strained, had reached a breaking point. And yet, even now, part of Emily wanted to apologize, to go back and make things right. Maybe Rachel is right, she thought. Maybe I've been too distant. Maybe I haven't been there for her like I should have. But another part of her was angry. Why do I always have to be the one to make things right? Why was it always on her to fix everything, to hold the family together? Wasn't she allowed to have a life of her own? She typed a quick response. "Emily, I need some time. I don't know what to say." The words didn't feel like enough, but it was all she could muster. She tossed the phone on the bed and walked to the kitchen, her thoughts still racing. She needed a break from all the noise, from the endless expectations. Emily had spent years trying to please everyone, never taking the time to focus on herself. And now it was coming to a head. The anger and frustration she had buried deep inside were starting to bubble to the surface. Her phone rang again, this time with a call from her mom. Emily groaned, staring at the screen. She knew what was coming. Mom was never one to let anything slide, especially when it came to family drama. Emily let the phone ring for a moment before answering. "Mom," Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Emily, where are you?" "You've been avoiding us all morning." Her mom's voice came through, tight with worry. "Your father and I are really concerned. This isn't how we handle things in this family." "Mom, Emily sighed, rubbing her temples. "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not." Her mom's voice softened, but the frustration was still there. "Emily, no one is asking you to pretend. We're just trying to work through things. Your sister." "Rachel doesn't get it," Emily snapped, cutting her mom off. "She's always angry at me, like I'm the cause of all her problems. But I'm not the one who never lets things go. She just pushes and pushes and expects me to carry it all on my own." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and Emily could almost hear her mom sigh through the phone. "I know it's been hard for you. We all know that. But this family, this whole family, needs to learn how to communicate better. You included." Emily's chest tightened. It wasn't the first time her mom had said that. It seemed like no one in the family ever truly understood what it felt like to be the fixer. They all had their own struggles, their own dramas, but it was Emily who always got stuck cleaning up the mess. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," Emily said softly, more to herself than to her mom. "I'm tired, Mom. I can't keep being the one who holds everything together." Her mom's voice softened, filled with more understanding now. "You don't have to hold it all together alone, sweetheart. But we do need you. Just come back. Let's talk about this. We'll figure it out." But Emily wasn't sure they could. She wasn't sure she even wanted to anymore. She had spent her whole life trying to fit into a mold that didn't quite suit her. She wasn't the perfect daughter, the perfect sister. She wasn't perfect at all. And yet, it was always expected of her to be just that. "I don't know, Mom," Emily said, her voice distant. "I need time." Her mom sighed again. "I understand. But don't shut us out, Emily. We're your family." As the conversation ended, Emily sat down at the kitchen table, feeling both a sense of relief and a deep ache. Her mom's words still lingered in her mind. "We're your family." The guilt settled in quickly. What kind of daughter am I? walking away from my family like this. But then she remembered Rachel's face, the anger in her eyes, the words she had thrown at her. And a new anger surged within Emily. Why do I always have to be the one who fixes everything? Why can't they see that I'm struggling too? As Emily sat in the silence of her apartment, she realized one thing for certain. She could no longer pretend that everything was fine. Her family was in turmoil, and no amount of her trying to fix it was going to make it better. There was only one thing she could do now: figure out what she needed, for once. But that meant facing the hard truth. The family I've been holding together may not be the same one I've known all my life. Emily spent the next few days in a blur. Work was a distraction and escape, but it wasn't enough to keep the nagging thoughts from creeping in. Her family, her past, the never-ending responsibility she'd carried for so long, it was all crashing down around her. As she sat at her desk one late afternoon, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was from Sam, her younger brother. "Sam, Mom wants you to come over for dinner. She's worried about you. Please." Emily stared at the message for a moment, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She hadn't seen or spoken to Sam since the dinner debacle. She could only imagine how much her absence had shaken him, especially with everything going on between her and Rachel. Sam had always been the peacemaker between them, the one who tried to keep things light and balanced, and she knew he didn't want to be caught in the middle. She thought back to when they were kids, how Sam would always look up to her, how he'd come to her for advice when he was dealing with bullies or school drama. Even though Emily had been busy holding everything together at home, she had always tried to protect Sam. He was the last person who deserved to be dragged into the chaos. But this wasn't just about me anymore, Emily thought. She had to decide, could she continue avoiding them, or was it time to confront the wreckage that had been festering in her family for so long? With a deep sigh, Emily typed back a simple response. "Emily, I'll be there." When Emily arrived at her parents' house, she was greeted by a tense atmosphere. Her mom was in the kitchen, her face creased with concern. Her dad was sitting in the living room, flipping through a magazine but not really paying attention. Sam was standing by the door, looking awkward and unsure of how to approach his sister. "Hey," Emily said softly, breaking the silence as she stepped inside. Her mom was the first to move, walking over and giving her a quick, tight hug. "I'm glad you came. We've all been worried about you," she said, her voice full of worry. "I'm okay, Mom," Emily replied, but even she didn't believe the words. How could she be okay when her whole world felt like it was unraveling? Rachel wasn't there yet. Emily had expected that. Her sister had a way of making an entrance, always the last to arrive, always ready to stir the pot. "Do you want something to eat?" her mom asked, trying to break the ice. "I've made your favorite." Emily nodded absently, sitting down at the table. The silence between her and her parents felt thick, suffocating. It was like everyone was afraid to speak the wrong words. "I'm sorry about the other night," her mom said after a few moments, her voice quieter now. "I know things got out of hand. But, Emily, we can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not." Emily's stomach churned. "It's not that simple, Mom. I don't know if it's something that can be fixed anymore." Her mom's face fell slightly, the hurt in her eyes evident. I know it's been hard. But you're a part of this family too, Em. You can't just shut us out." "I never meant to shut you out," Emily said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I'm tired, Mom. I'm tired of always being the one who fixes everything. It's exhausting." Her mom sighed, sitting down across from her. "I know you've carried a lot on your shoulders, honey. But you have to understand that we need you. We all need each other." Before Emily could respond, the door opened with a sharp creak. Rachel entered, her presence filling the room immediately. She had a way of doing that, commanding attention without saying a word. But today, her usual confidence was laced with something darker, something Emily couldn't quite place. "Is everything okay?" Rachel asked, her eyes scanning the room as she took in the tense atmosphere. "No, Rachel," Emily said, standing up. "Everything is not okay. You've made sure of that." Rachel's eyes narrowed, the familiar tension between the two sisters flaring up once again. "Oh, so now it's my fault?" she snapped. "Maybe if you stopped acting like you're too perfect to care, we wouldn't be in this mess." Emily's heart pounded. The familiar fight was happening again, the one where Rachel's anger clashed with Emily's quiet frustration. The one where no matter how hard Emily tried to keep the peace, Rachel would always push back, always demand more. But this time, something inside Emily snapped. She had spent her whole life bending and twisting herself to make everyone else happy, to keep everything from falling apart. But now, she couldn't keep pretending anymore. "You don't get it, Rachel," Emily said, her voice rising. "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending like I'm okay when I'm drowning. I'm not perfect, okay? I'm not some superhero who can fix everything. I'm just me. And I'm tired of carrying all of this alone." The words hung in the air, heavy and raw. For a moment, no one spoke. Rachel's eyes widened, as if she hadn't expected Emily to open up like this. Their parents sat in stunned silence, unable to find the words to bridge the gap that had suddenly widened between them. Finally, Rachel's face softened, just slightly. "I didn't know you felt that way, she said, her voice quieter now, more vulnerable than Emily had ever heard it. "I didn't know you were struggling too." Emily took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside her. "I've been trying to hold everything together for so long that I forgot how to be myself. I've been so focused on making sure you, Mom, and Dad were okay that I didn't stop to think about what I needed. And I'm not okay, Rachel. I'm really not." The room was still for a moment, the weight of Emily's words settling in. Then, in the silence, Emily felt something shift. The tension that had held them all hostage for so long began to loosen, just a little. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. Rachel walked over to Emily, her step slow but steady. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice small but sincere. "I didn't know you were carrying so much. I thought you had it all together, like you always do." Emily looked at her sister, her heart swelling with emotion. "I don't have it all together. But maybe we can figure it out. Together." For the first time in a long while, Emily felt a flicker of hope. It was just a small spark, but it was there. A tiny light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. The wounds of the past couldn't be healed overnight. But for the first time in years, Emily felt like she could finally let herself be vulnerable, to let go of the weight she had carried for so long. And that, she realized, was the first step toward healing. Emily woke up the next morning feeling different. The air felt lighter, like the weight of the past few days had lifted just a little. She hadn't expected such a raw, honest moment with Rachel, especially not after all the years of tension that had defined their relationship. But something had shifted between them the night before, a crack in the armor that both of them had built so carefully. It was small, but it was real. Yet, as she got ready for work, the nagging feeling in her chest wouldn't quite go away. It was like the calm before a storm, an unease that settled into her bones, making her second-guess every decision she had made over the past few days. Had she done the right thing? Was opening up to Rachel really going to help, or would it make things worse? Before she could spiral further into doubt, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from her mom. "Mom, can you talk later? Rachel is upset. She says she feels like we've all been ignoring her. She's worried about everything." Emily's heart sank. Just when she thought they were making progress, it seemed like the cracks were deepening again. Was Rachel's anger truly gone, or was this just the calm before the next storm? She took a deep breath, trying to steady her thoughts. The night before had felt like a breakthrough, a raw moment of vulnerability, but now it was clear that Rachel's anger wasn't something that would just disappear overnight. The road ahead would be messy, but it seemed like Emily had no choice but to keep moving forward. That afternoon, Emily arrived at her parents' house once more. The house was quieter than usual, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. As she stepped through the door, Sam was sitting on the couch, his head buried in his phone, his shoulders slumped in exhaustion. "Hey," Emily said softly, taking a seat beside him. Sam looked up from his phone, his expression more serious than usual. "You okay?" he asked, his voice quieter than usual. "I don't know," Emily replied, running a hand through her hair. "I thought things were getting better. But Mom just texted me." Rachel's upset again. "I'm scared I made things worse." Sam leaned back on the couch, looking at his sister with a deep, knowing gaze. "You didn't make things worse. Rachel, she's always been like this, right? I mean, she never really knows what she wants. And you've been trying so hard to make everything perfect. But no one can do that. Not even you." Emily sighed, feeling the weight of his words settle over her. Sam was right. Rachel had always been unpredictable. Her moods were like a roller coaster, swinging from intense highs to deep lows, and Emily had been the one left holding on, trying to smooth things over every time she fell off track. "I just wish it were easier," Emily said, her voice breaking a little. "I've spent my whole life being the one who fixes things. But no matter how hard I try, nothing ever changes." Sam placed a hand on her shoulder, offering a rare moment of comfort. "Maybe it's time to stop fixing things, Em. Maybe it's time to let us help." But as Emily sat there, a cold pit in her stomach began to grow. She knew her brother meant well, but the truth was far more complicated. The weight of the family's expectations, the constant pressure to be the glue that held them all together, was becoming too much. The more Emily tried to shoulder the burden, the more it felt like it was suffocating her. As if on cue, the doors swung open and Rachel walked in, her expression unreadable. Emily's heart raced, the familiar tension hanging between them like a thick fog. "Can we talk?" Rachel asked, her voice tight but calm. Emily stood up, feeling a knot form in her throat. "Yeah, let's talk." Rachel led Emily into the living room, and Sam followed behind them, sitting down with a subtle sigh. The air was thick with expectation. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," Rachel began, her tone softer than it had been the night before. "And I guess I owe you an apology, for everything I said. I didn't mean it. I was angry, and I let it all come out." Emily stood there, stunned, unsure of what to say. For years, she had tried to get Rachel to open up, to understand her pain. Now, Rachel was doing just that, but it wasn't as simple as it seemed. "You don't need to apologize," Emily finally said, her voice hoarse. "I know you were upset. I've been upset too. But it's not just about what you said. It's about how we've been treating each other for all these years. We've never really talked, Rachel. Not about what really matters." Rachel shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "I know. I don't know how to be vulnerable like you. It's easier to be angry than to face the fact that I've been hurting." Emily's chest tightened as she listened to her sister's confession. It wasn't the apology she had expected, but it was the one she needed. The cracks in their relationship weren't just about Rachel's anger or Emily's distancing. They were about a deep-seated fear, a fear of facing their own vulnerabilities. "I don't want us to keep doing this," Emily said, her voice trembling. "I don't want to keep pretending like everything's okay when it's not. But I can't do this alone. I need you, Rachel. I need you to be here with me. We're sisters, and I'm not going to give up on us." For a long moment, Rachel didn't respond. But finally, she nodded slowly, her eyes softening. "I don't want to lose you, Em. I really don't." The air between them shifted once more, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Emily felt the weight on her chest lift just a little bit. She had spent so long fighting, so long trying to hold everything together on her own. But now, she realized, she didn't have to do it alone anymore. Her family was still a mess. There was no easy fix for the years of tension and unspoken words. But Emily knew one thing for certain. This was the beginning of something new. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be quick. But the first step had been taken. And sometimes, that was all that mattered. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The next few days were a mix of quiet, tentative moments and deep conversations. Emily couldn't quite tell if they were moving toward healing or simply avoiding the deeper issues, but she knew she had to give it time. Time to breathe, time to process, and time to understand her own emotions before she could truly move forward. It was Friday afternoon when she received the text from Rachel. Rachel, hey, I know we've had our ups and downs, but I think I want to make things right. I want to meet and talk. Just us. Emily stared at the message for a moment, her heart racing. She hadn't expected this so soon. Was Rachel really ready to face everything? Or was this just another attempt at making up without addressing the real issues? The feeling of doubt crept in again, but this time, Emily forced herself to push it aside. She'd spent too long running from things that needed to be faced. Maybe now was the time to finally confront it all head-on. Emily, okay, let's do it. Where? Rachel suggested a cafe they used to go to when they were younger, a place that held memories of simpler times, before everything had become so complicated. Emily agreed, and as she put her phone down, she felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. She didn't know what this conversation would bring, but she knew it was necessary. She was ready to face whatever came next. When Emily arrived at the cafe, she found Rachel already sitting at a table near the window, her gaze distant, as if she was lost in thought. She looked up when Emily walked in, a faint smile crossing her face. Hey, Rachel greeted her softly. There was an unfamiliar gentleness to her voice that Emily hadn't heard in years. Hey, Emily replied, sitting across from her. The tension between them was still there, but it was different now. It wasn't as sharp, as raw. There was a tentative hopefulness hanging in the air. Rachel took a deep breath. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how we've never really talked. And honestly, I think you're right. I've been angry for so long, and I've never really understood why. I don't know how to let go of it. Emily nodded, her heart swelling. It felt like a weight had been lifted off her chest. For so long, she had felt like the one doing all the emotional labor, trying to fix their broken relationship while Rachel pushed her away. But now here was Rachel, vulnerable, admitting that she didn't know how to heal. I know, Emily said softly. I've been holding onto things too, Rachel. Things from the past, from growing up. I never really talked about it. I just kept trying to make everything okay for everyone else. And I forgot about myself in the process. Rachel looked at her, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. I guess we were both too focused on our own pain to see the other person's. There was a long pause, and for a moment, Emily wasn't sure if she should speak. But then Rachel spoke again, her voice trembling. I don't want to lose you, Em. You're my sister, and I need you in my life. I know I've messed up, but I want to try. I don't want to keep fighting with you. Emily's chest tightened, and for a brief moment, she was afraid the words would catch in her throat. But she forced herself to speak, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. I don't want to lose you either, Rachel. I've spent too much of my life trying to fix things, trying to be everything for everyone. But I can't do it anymore. I need us to be real with each other. No more pretending. No more sweeping things under the rug. Rachel nodded, her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry for everything I've said, for everything I've done. I didn't know how much I was hurting you. But I promise I'm going to try. I'm going to work on myself too. Emily took a deep breath, her own emotions rising to the surface. For so long, she had been holding back, afraid that if she let her guard down, everything would crumble. But now, sitting across from her sister, she realized that healing wasn't about perfection. It was about being willing to show up for each other, even in the messiness of it all. I'm not perfect either, Rachel. I've made mistakes too. But I want to move forward. I want us to be a family again, not the way we were, but in a healthier, more honest way. We don't have to have all the answers right now, but we can start by trying. Rachel reached across the table, her hand shaking slightly. Emily took it without hesitation, feeling the warmth of her sister's touch, a touch that was so familiar yet had been missing for so long. They sat there for a while, not saying much, but the silence was different now. It wasn't heavy with resentment or anger. It was a quiet understanding, a shared moment of vulnerability and hope. As Emily left the cafe later that afternoon, she felt a shift inside herself. The world hadn't magically become perfect. There were still difficult conversations to have, still wounds to heal. But for the first time in years, Emily felt like she was no longer carrying the weight of it all alone. She had let down her walls, and Rachel had done the same. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start rebuilding. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she pulled it out, her heart skipping when she saw the message. Sam. How did it go? Everything okay? Emily smiled and quickly typed back. Emily. Yeah. It's a start. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. As she walked to her car, Emily couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope for the first time in a long while. She had spent so much of her life trying to fix everything for everyone else, trying to hold everything together. But now she realized that healing didn't mean fixing everything. It meant being real with each other, accepting the messiness, and moving forward, together. And that, she thought, was the most important lesson of all. The next few weeks passed in a blur of small steps, each one bringing Emily closer to the resolution she had longed for, though she knew it would take more than time to fully heal the wounds. The family dynamics were still fragile, like an old vase that had been glued back together, now holding the weight of its cracks in quiet tension. But there was hope now in the spaces between the silences. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily found herself sitting in the park, her feet tucked beneath her as she watched the golden light fade into a soft, cool twilight. She needed the solitude. The noise of the world, the pressure from her family to move on and be okay, had become overwhelming. It was hard to reconcile the joy of their small victories with the emotional exhaustion of having been at the center of so much turmoil for so long. Her phone buzzed in her bag, and she pulled it out, surprised to see a message from Sam. Sam, hey, you good? I was thinking of stopping by tomorrow. I need to talk to you about something important. Emily hesitated for a moment. Sam was her rock, always the steady presence in the storm, but the way he phrased the message felt heavier than usual. She quickly typed a reply. Emily, yeah, I'm fine. Everything okay? You sound serious. A few seconds passed before Sam replied. Sam, I'll explain tomorrow. It's just, well, I'm not sure what to say yet. Just want to talk in person. See you soon. The unease gnawed at Emily's stomach. What could he possibly want to talk about? She had a feeling it wasn't just about Rachel. Sam, despite his usual calm demeanor, was unpredictable when it came to deep family issues. And if it was important enough to mention without going into details, it had to be significant. The next day, Emily waited anxiously in the living room, pacing occasionally, her thoughts spiraling in 1,000 directions. Was it about her and Rachel? Had something gone wrong? Had their attempt at rebuilding their relationship crumbled already? When Sam walked in, the momentary relief she felt quickly turned to confusion. His usual laid-back stride was replaced by a tense, purposeful gait. His eyes were downcast as he greeted her with a simple nod before sitting down on the couch. Sam, Emily said, sitting down opposite him. What's going on? You're scaring me. Sam didn't look up immediately. He stared at his hands for a moment, his fingers fidgeting. Emily had never seen him so uncomfortable. She leaned forward, the concern in her voice sharper now. Sam, what's happening? Finally, Sam met her gaze. His eyes were filled with something she hadn't seen before: anxiety. Fear, even. I think I'm going to move out, he said quietly. Emily blinked, her brain struggling to process the words. What? Sam sighed deeply. I've been thinking about it for a while, I need space. I need to figure things out on my own. I've been here for so long, helping out, trying to be the good son, the good brother, but I don't know if I'm really doing what's best for me anymore. And I'm not saying I'm leaving because of anything you or Mom did, please understand that. It's just, I need a change. The room felt suddenly cold. Emily opened her mouth to speak, but couldn't find the right words. She hadn't expected this. Sam had always been so grounded, the one person who always had it together. And now he was telling her that he was walking away? Sam, she whispered. But why? I thought we were all getting better. Everything with Rachel, and with Mom. Why now? I don't know. I just feel like I'm stuck, Sam said, his voice cracking slightly. Like, I'm always trying to make everyone else happy, to keep the peace, and in the process, I've lost myself. I don't even know who I am anymore when I'm not trying to hold everyone else up. I'm not okay, and I think it's time I figure it out. The weight of his words hit Emily like a wave. It was the same thing she had been feeling for so long, this suffocating need to fix everything and everyone around her, to be the one who held everything together. Now, Sam was saying what Emily had never been able to admit. They both needed to find themselves, away from the expectations of family. Emily swallowed hard. I understand, Sam. I really do. But I don't want to lose you too. What if we can both figure this out together? You don't have to leave for good. Maybe just take a break. Maybe that's what we all need. To breathe. Sam looked at her, his eyes softening. Maybe you're right. But I need time. I need to figure out who I am without this weight on my shoulders. I can't keep going like this. Not for me, not for anyone. There was a long pause as Emily processed what he was saying. She didn't want him to leave, didn't want to feel the hole that would form in their family. But she also understood that sometimes distance was necessary for growth, for healing. She couldn't hold on to him forever, just as she couldn't hold on to everything else. I'll support you, Sam, Emily said, her voice steady despite the surge of emotion in her chest. I won't be mad. I won't even try to stop you. I need you to know that you'll always be my brother. No matter what happens, no matter where you go, we're family. And that won't change. Sam gave a small, grateful smile. Thanks, I don't know if I'll ever figure everything out, but I know one thing. You're one of the few people who actually gets it. You don't try to fix me. You just let me be who I am. And that means more than you know. As Emily hugged him, she realized that sometimes healing didn't come from fixing things or putting the pieces back together in neat little rows. It came from allowing space for each person to figure out who they were, apart from the expectations, apart from the roles they had been playing for so long. Maybe Sam wasn't ready to return just yet, and maybe Rachel's journey wasn't complete either. But in that moment, Emily knew that things had changed. She had let go of the need to be everything for everyone, and in turn, they were all learning to take responsibility for their own healing. There was still a long road ahead, but for the first time in a long while, Emily felt like they were all on the right path. One where everyone had the space they needed to grow. And that was enough. The weeks that followed Sam's decision to move out were both challenging and liberating. It wasn't easy for anyone in the family, but the space seemed to bring a clarity they hadn't realized they needed. Sam's absence was felt in the quiet of the house. His laughter no longer echoed in the halls, and the living room, once full of his constant presence, now felt almost too big, too empty. But despite the void, there was a sense of quiet hope that filled the space between the family members. Emily, for the first time in years, allowed herself to slow down. She didn't rush to fill the emptiness with distractions or try to patch up the fissures in her relationships with more forced conversations. Instead, she focused on her own journey. It was a hard thing to do when the world seemed to demand so much of her, but Emily had come to realize something. She couldn't fix everything, and maybe that was okay. One Tuesday evening, after a long day at work, Emily found herself on a walk through the same park where she had sat weeks ago. The air was crisp, a reminder that fall was just around the corner. She liked the autumn. The change in seasons felt symbolic, a fresh start, even if it wasn't always obvious. As she strolled, her thoughts wandered to Rachel. There had been a few texts exchanged, some calls that went unanswered, and Emily could feel the walls they had put up still standing tall, despite the emotional breakthroughs they had shared. She was learning that relationships weren't fixed by a few heart-to-heart conversations, especially ones built on years of distance and unspoken resentments. Healing took time, and the longer she spent reflecting, the more she realized that Rachel still had her own battles to face. It was in this moment of reflection that her phone buzzed, breaking her from her thoughts. She pulled it out, half expecting to see another missed call from Rachel. But instead, it was a message from Sam. Sam, hey, can we talk? I've been thinking a lot, and I think I've made a decision. Her heart skipped a beat. What decision? She quickly typed a reply. Emily, sure. What's going on? Within moments, Sam's response came through. Sam, I think I'm ready to come home. Not just for a visit, but really come back. I've been staying with a friend for a bit, and I've realized I've missed being around. I don't think I'm fully ready to just pick up where we left off, but I think I'm ready to be part of the family again. The weight of his words hung in the air as Emily read and reread the message. Her first instinct was to jump into action, to immediately ask him when he was coming back and if he was sure. But instead, she took a deep breath, letting the moment settle before she responded. Emily, I'm really happy to hear that, Sam. I think it's a step in the right direction for all of us. But no pressure, okay? Take your time. We're all still figuring things out. Sam, thanks, Em. I'll let you know when I'm ready. I just wanted you to know. A rush of emotion swept over Emily as she sat on a bench in the park. She hadn't expected this, hadn't even realized how much she needed to hear it. Sam was coming back. Slowly, the pieces of their family were starting to come together again, and this time, the foundation felt stronger. There were still uncertainties, but for the first time, Emily could feel the winds of change working in their favor. That night, after sitting with her thoughts for a while, Emily decided to reach out to Rachel. She didn't want to rush things, but there was a quiet pull in her heart, a desire to rebuild, to offer the olive branch once again. Her fingers hovered over the screen as she typed a message. Emily, hey. I've been thinking. I think we need to talk again. For real this time. Are you free sometime this week? It was simple, direct, but full of unspoken meaning. Rachel had kept her distance since their last conversation, and while Emily understood that it was Rachel's way of processing everything, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were both waiting for some kind of breakthrough. A few minutes later, Rachel replied. Rachel, yeah. I think I've been avoiding it. I'll be free on Thursday night. How about dinner? Emily smiled. Dinner was a start. It wasn't much, but it was something. Thursday evening came, and Emily drove to the small diner where she and Rachel had spent countless hours eating greasy fries and talking about everything and nothing. As Emily parked, her stomach fluttered. She wasn't sure what to expect this time. Would Rachel have the same guarded attitude, or would they finally be able to drop the walls? Rachel was already sitting at a booth when Emily walked in, her back to the door as she stared out the window. When Emily slid into the seat across from her, Rachel turned, offering a tight smile. Hey, Rachel said, her voice softer than usual. Hey, Emily replied, her own voice matching the gentleness in the air. "Thanks for meeting me." Rachel nodded, glancing down at her menu before looking back at Emily. "I've been thinking about a lot of things. About us. About everything I said last time." Emily leaned forward, her gaze steady. "You don't have to apologize for anything, Rach. We both said things we didn't mean. I think we need to figure this out together, without the anger, without the blame." Rachel sighed, pushing her menu aside. "I know. I've been holding on to so much anger, Emily. I didn't even know how to let it go. But I'm tired of holding on to it. I don't want to keep pushing you away. I don't want to lose you either." The sincerity in Rachel's voice made Emily's heart swell. She had always known Rachel was stubborn, but hearing her sister admit to her flaws was something Emily never thought she would witness. "I don't want to lose you either," Emily said quietly. "We've been through too much for that." Rachel nodded, her lips trembling. "Let's start over, okay? No more holding grudges. No more avoiding the tough stuff. Let's just be honest with each other." "Agreed," Emily said, her smile finally reaching her eyes. As they sat there, the tension between them slowly started to melt away. The road to rebuilding was still long, but they were finally walking down it together. And for the first time in a long while, Emily could breathe a little easier. As Emily left the diner that night, the weight of everything that had happened, the anger, the heartbreak, the unresolved issues, seemed a little lighter. There were still many more hurdles to overcome, but the simple act of showing up for each other, of being willing to put the past behind them, felt like a victory in itself. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. The next few days felt like they were suspended in time. Things were not exactly normal yet, but Emily could sense a shift. There was a subtle change in the air, like the first stirrings of a breeze that promised a new season. Her dinner with Rachel had felt like a fragile truce, but still, it was progress. It had been so long since they had communicated without the heavy weight of resentment in the room. Emily couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. But just as things began to settle into this quiet, tentative peace, a phone call shattered the stillness. It was late afternoon on a Thursday when Emily's phone rang, the name on the screen causing her chest to tighten. It was Mom. Emily stared at the screen for a moment, trying to gather her thoughts. Her mom had been largely absent, not just physically, but emotionally, over the past few months. Since everything with Rachel and Sam had exploded, she had kept a safe distance. She'd always been there, in her own way, but Emily could sense that her mother was struggling just as much as the rest of them. "Mom?" Emily answered hesitantly, her voice cautious. Emily, her mom's voice crackled with tension. "I need to talk to you. It's important." A lump formed in Emily's throat. It was rare for her mom to speak this urgently, and the anxiety in her tone made Emily's heart race. "What's going on?" she asked, already bracing herself for bad news. There was a long pause on the other end before her mom spoke again. I've made a mistake. A big one. And I think you need to know the truth about something. Something that's been hidden for a long time." Emily's pulse quickened. This wasn't what she had expected. Her mind spun in a million directions, but she couldn't wrap her head around what her mother could possibly be referring to. "What truth, Mom?" Emily's voice trembled despite her best efforts to remain composed. "Can you meet me tomorrow? It's not something I can explain over the phone. Please, I need you to hear this from me." The request was heavy, the silence that followed suffocating. Emily glanced out the window, trying to find some semblance of clarity in the dimming light. "All right, I'll be there." The next day, Emily found herself at her mother's apartment, the familiar scent of her mom's floral perfume mixing with the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Emily had been here countless times before, but today, the space felt strange, tense, almost suffocating, as if something hung in the air, unspoken. Her mom was sitting on the couch when Emily walked in, her face drawn with weariness. She looked older somehow, her features softened by the weight of what she was about to reveal. Her hands trembled slightly as she motioned for Emily to sit beside her. "Mom, what's going on?" "You're scaring me," Emily said softly, sitting down beside her. Her mom exhaled slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I've been keeping something from you, Emily. Something about your father." The mention of her father immediately brought Emily's attention to sharp focus. Her father had left when Emily was just a child, and over the years, the bitterness of his departure had slowly faded into something resembling indifference. She hadn't thought about him much in recent years, not since she had grown up and learned to live without him. He had chosen to leave, and that was the story she had accepted. But now her mother's words were unsettling, a cold shiver running down her spine. "What about Dad?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mom hesitated, wringing her hands in her lap. "He didn't leave us because of what you think. He didn't leave because he didn't love me or because of some argument we had. No, Emily, he left because he was hiding something. Something much worse." Emily's heart began to pound in her chest. "What do you mean, Mom? What could be worse than him just walking out on us?" Her mom looked away, as though unable to meet her daughter's gaze. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. "Your father had a secret life, Emily. He wasn't the man you thought he was. I found out just before he left. He had been living with another woman. And worse, he had another family. A whole other family." Emily recoiled, her mind struggling to process what her mother was saying. It didn't make sense. She had never known anything about this. Her father had always been the distant, detached figure in her life, but this was something else entirely. "You're lying," Emily whispered, her voice thick with disbelief. "No, he wouldn't. He couldn't." "I wish I were lying," her mom choked out, tears welling in her eyes. "I found out after he left. After the divorce papers were signed, I found letters, photos, all of it. He had another wife, another daughter. A whole other life he kept from us for years. And that's why he left, Emily. He wasn't running from me. He was running from the truth. Running from what he'd done." The weight of her mother's words hit Emily like a ton of bricks. She felt the room spin, her head clouded with shock and confusion. This was her father, the man who had walked out on them without a word of explanation, without even a backward glance. This man, the one who had abandoned her family for no apparent reason, had been living a lie. "But why didn't you tell me sooner?" Emily finally managed to ask, her voice hoarse. "I didn't know how," her mom said, shaking her head. "I didn't know what to say. I thought maybe it was better if you never knew. But now, I can't keep it from you any longer. You deserve to know the truth." A heavy silence fell between them, and for the first time in what felt like ages, Emily didn't know what to say. Her mind was racing, trying to reconcile the man she thought she knew with the stranger her mother was describing. How could everything she knew about her father be a lie? How could he have been capable of such deceit? As she looked at her mom, she saw the pain etched deeply in her face. This wasn't just about her father's betrayal, it was about her mother's own heartache, her own years of being deceived, left in the dark. Emily realized in that moment that her mom had been carrying this burden alone, a burden she hadn't shared, not even with her own daughter. The room felt too small, too heavy, and Emily felt suffocated by the weight of everything her mom had just revealed. But there was one thing Emily knew for certain. She couldn't let this destroy her. She couldn't let her father's lies shape her future. "I don't know what to say, Mom," Emily said softly. "This is a lot. I need time to process it." Her mom nodded, wiping at her eyes. "I know, sweetie. I know. Take all the time you need." As Emily stood to leave, she realized one thing. No matter how painful the truth was, it was the truth. And now she had to figure out what to do with it. The drive back from her mother's apartment felt surreal. Emily's mind was reeling, trying to process everything she had just learned. She kept replaying her mother's words over and over in her head, each time with a new layer of disbelief. Her father had been living a double life, a whole other family, hidden in the shadows. And now, Emily had to reckon with the fact that her childhood memories, everything she had ever known, might have been built on lies. As the city lights flickered past her car window, she couldn't shake the thought of how easily her father had vanished from their lives. For years, she had blamed his departure on a simple lack of love or commitment. But now, the truth was far more complex. Was it possible that he had always been this man? A man capable of deception on such a scale? Or had something changed in him over time, twisting his heart into something unrecognizable? Her phone buzzed, interrupting her spiraling thoughts. It was a message from Rachel. Rachel, hey, you good? Want to talk? Emily hesitated. Rachel had been a steady presence in her life lately, and although their relationship was still fragile, she could feel her sister's willingness to rebuild. But how could she explain all of this? How could she share the weight of her emotions when she herself didn't fully understand them? Instead of responding immediately, Emily pulled into a parking lot and took a deep breath. She needed time to collect herself, to sort through the storm inside her head before talking to anyone else. The next morning, Emily woke up early, determined to get a grip on her emotions. Her mom's revelation had left a hollow ache in her chest, but she knew she had to confront the truth, no matter how painful it was. It wasn't just about her father's betrayal. It was about her family, her sense of identity, and the future she wanted to create for herself. She started her day the same way she had for years, a cup of coffee, the familiar hum of the city outside, and a few minutes of quiet reflection. But today, her thoughts felt more like a tidal wave than a calm river. As she sipped her coffee, Emily thought about Sam. Since he had reached out to her about coming back home, their relationship had felt different. She could tell he was going through something too, something deep that had caused him to step away from the family for a while. His decision to come back was significant, but she also knew it wasn't going to be easy for him. He was carrying his own baggage, just like she was. Emily pulled out her phone and dialed Sam's number. She didn't know why, but something about hearing his voice gave her a sense of stability, something she needed right now. It rang a few times before he picked up. Hey, Sam's voice came through, warm and familiar. Hey, Sam, she said, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. I wanted to check in with you. How are you doing? There was a brief silence on the other end before Sam responded. I'm doing okay. I've been thinking a lot, about coming back. I've been doing a lot of reflecting. It's not as simple as I thought it would be. But I'm ready, I think. Emily smiled softly. Hearing him talk about coming back to the family was reassuring. It wasn't easy to go from estrangement to reconciliation, but she could hear the resolve in his voice. I think that's a step in the right direction, Sam, she said. But take your time. There's no rush, okay? I know, he replied. I miss you guys, It's been tough. I know, she said, her voice softening. We've all been through a lot. There was a pause before Sam spoke again, his tone more serious now. Can I ask you something? Of course, she said, her curiosity piqued. Have you talked to Mom recently? How's she holding up? Emily winced slightly at the question. She had been avoiding talking to her mom about the bombshell she had dropped the day before. Her mom was clearly still struggling with the aftermath of everything, and Emily wasn't sure how to approach it. But Sam's question felt like a nudge she couldn't ignore. I spoke to her yesterday, Emily said slowly. She told me something. Something about Dad. Sam's voice grew more urgent. What do you mean? What did she tell you? Emily took a deep breath before answering. She told me that Dad didn't just leave because he didn't love us. He left because he had another family. A whole other life. He was living a lie, Sam. He had a wife and daughter that none of us knew about. That's why he disappeared. There was a long silence, and Emily could practically hear Sam processing the words. Finally, he spoke, his voice a mix of disbelief and pain. That doesn't make sense. Why would Mom keep that from us? I don't know, Emily said quietly. I think she was just trying to protect us. But now, I don't know what to believe anymore. Sam let out a heavy sigh. I can't believe it! It changes everything, doesn't it? All these years, I thought he just didn't care. But this is something else. Emily nodded, even though Sam couldn't see her. Yeah, it's hard to wrap my head around. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, Em. But we need to talk to Mom about it. She's been holding on to this for too long. We can't just let it slide. I agree, Emily said softly. But I don't know if I'm ready to confront her about it yet. I need some time to figure out what this means for me. For us. I understand, Sam replied. Take your time, but we'll have to face it eventually. I just don't want to lose you in all this, okay? We've got to stick together. Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She didn't have all the answers yet, but in that moment, she felt a sense of peace. They would get through this. They would heal together. Yeah, we will, she said, her voice steady now. We will. Later that afternoon, Emily sat in front of her laptop, a blank document open on the screen. She had been meaning to start working on a report for her job, but her mind kept drifting back to her father and everything her mom had said. She needed to find a way to move forward, but it felt impossible when the past was constantly pulling her back. Her phone buzzed again, and this time, it was a text from Rachel. Rachel, how about we get coffee tomorrow? I think we need to talk. About everything. Emily smiled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. This was it, the next step. She and Rachel would face the truth together, no matter how painful. And maybe, just maybe, they could start to rebuild the bond they once shared. With a deep breath, Emily typed her reply. Emily, I'd like that. Let's do it. The days that followed were a blur for Emily. She could feel the weight of everything, her father's betrayal, the deepening rift in her family, and the uncertainty about what the future would hold. She had spent so much time trying to protect herself from the pain, but now, facing the truth, it felt like a heavy burden she couldn't escape. But there was a strange sense of relief, too. She had confronted the lies, and now there was nothing left but to move forward. And though the road ahead seemed long and filled with uncertainty, Emily knew one thing for sure: she wasn't alone in this. The next morning, Emily met Rachel at a small cafe, a cozy spot they used to frequent when they were younger. The soft hum of conversation and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, but today, it wasn't the usual comfort that Emily sought. It was something deeper, something more meaningful. Rachel was already sitting at a corner table when Emily walked in. She looked up and gave her sister a tentative smile, but there was a vulnerability in her eyes that Emily had never seen before. Hey, Rachel greeted, her voice quieter than usual. Hey, Emily replied, sitting down across from her. Have you been? Rachel sighed, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. Honestly, it's been a roller coaster. I've been thinking a lot about everything. About what Mom told you. And about us. Emily nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of the conversation ahead. I know. Me too. For a few moments, they just sat there, the silence stretching between them. It wasn't the kind of silence they'd shared in the past, where everything felt comfortable and unspoken. No, this was different. It felt charged, filled with years of unaddressed emotions, misunderstandings, and hurt. Finally, Rachel broke the silence. I never realized how much I took for granted. For a long time, I was so angry at you, at Mom, at everything, but I never stopped to think about how much I was hurting you. I've been selfish. Emily felt a pang in her chest. Hearing Rachel's admission, the sincerity in her voice, brought a mix of relief and sadness. They had both been carrying so much, and yet they had never really spoken about it. Until now. I get it, Emily said softly. I've been selfish too. I thought I was protecting myself, but I pushed everyone away in the process. I guess we were both just trying to figure out how to survive all this, and we didn't know how to do it together. Rachel nodded, her eyes wet with unshed tears. I'm so sorry, Em. I've always looked up to you, but I didn't know how to deal with everything that was happening. And when things got messy with Sam, I pulled away. It's okay, Emily said, reaching out to take her sister's hand. I've been just as lost as you, but we can't keep hiding from each other. We have to face this together. Rachel squeezed her hand, her expression softening. I want to be there for you. I want to help. I don't want to lose you again. Emily smiled, a tear escaping her eye despite her best efforts. I don't want to lose you either. But I think we've both been lost for too long, Rachel. It's time we find our way back. Together. For the first time in what felt like years, Emily felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't just about healing the rift between her and Rachel, it was about healing herself. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long time, she knew she was taking the right steps. Over the next few weeks, things began to change. Slowly, but surely, Emily and Rachel started rebuilding their relationship. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't meant to be, but it was real. They had long conversations about their childhood, about their parents, about their fears and regrets. They didn't always agree, but they listened to each other, and that made all the difference. Emily also reached out to Sam. She hadn't seen him in a while, but they had talked more frequently, and it was clear that he was ready to move forward as well. They agreed to meet up for dinner one evening, and despite the tension that still lingered, Emily could feel the walls between them slowly crumbling. It wasn't easy, but it was progress. And then there was her mom. Emily hadn't yet had the chance to confront her fully about the revelation regarding her father. She knew it would be a difficult conversation, but she also knew that it was necessary. Her mom had carried the weight of that secret for years, and Emily couldn't keep avoiding it. She decided to call her mom one afternoon, her heart pounding in her chest as she dialed the number. "Hi, Mom," Emily said when her mother picked up. "Can we talk?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Emily could hear her mom's breath hitch. "Of course, sweetie. What's on your mind?" "I need to understand more about Dad," Emily began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I need to know everything, even the hard parts. I can't move forward until I do." Her mom sighed, the weight of the years pressing down on her. "I know, Emily. I know. And I'm ready to tell you everything. It's not easy, but I owe you that much." They agreed to meet the following weekend, and for the first time in ages, Emily felt like she was taking control of her own story. The pain wasn't gone, but she could see a path forward. A path where the truth wasn't something to fear, but something to embrace. The day of the meeting with her mom arrived, and Emily walked into the living room, ready to face the past head-on. She sat across from her mom, her heart heavy with anticipation. "Mom, I know this is hard," Emily began, her voice soft. "But I need to hear the whole story. I need to understand why he left, and why you kept this from us." Her mom nodded, tears in her eyes. "I should have told you sooner. But I didn't want to hurt you. I was trying to protect you from the pain I was feeling." Emily reached out, her hand on her mother's. "It's not about protecting me anymore, Mom. It's about understanding. It's about moving forward together." And as her mother began to share the full truth, the pain, the betrayal, and the complexities of their past, Emily realized something powerful. The truth didn't change what had happened, but it gave her the clarity she needed to heal. And just like that, the weight that had been hanging over her family began to lift. Slowly but surely, Emily could feel the pieces falling into place. It wasn't an easy road, but for the first time in a long time, she saw a future that was hers to create. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?